Hey, I'm Taylor, a business consultant and strategist, and I'm here to teach you that you can scale your business sustainably. This is Simply Business, your playbook for structure, clarity, and strategy that grows your business without costing your lifestyle. Let's get into it. I have so many listeners that listen to this podcast that are probably in that position that you were in 2002 to 2017, right? Getting all of those hours up, and they have the big dreams and want to achieve, whatever that might look like for success for someone. Being that as well, that you have had so many hours experience and your business literally supports people to go through that journey. What do you feel like are the top, maybe like 2 to 3 things that you can almost pick like at the start will dictate whether that someone's going to succeed or not? Like, what are the things that you typically can kind of see in someone, whether it's their attributes or their knowledge or how they show up, that's like, yeah, I can see that they've got the potential to go there?
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 things. Passion, willingness to learn, which sometimes means removing ego. And then third, just like doing as you say and going all in. So a lot of like the passion, I talk about it like if I was starting a business today, if I'm not waking up with a boner for it, right, I'm not starting it. But then because of market conditions, AI, and a multitude of different factors out there these days, I'd also want to make sure that there's a product market fit for the problem that I want to solve. So I think like if I'm starting out today, it's passion and product market fit as the benchmark. And they kind of go hand in hand. The second one, yes, it's like willingness to learn. Like I'm 42 turning 43, I'm constantly learning. I make sure I read, no less than 15 pages of a book every single day, 7 days a week. Sometimes it's 12. So, but I'm constantly learning. I spend at least an hour every day trying to upskill myself in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And I think your skills that you need to stack as you go through the seasons of life change. So, like when you start out, like if there's a problem that you want to solve, like you're passionate about marketing. Right? And marketing, what is marketing? It's about driving eyeballs and brand awareness that generate leads that convert into sales that generates revenue, right? So like if you're passionate about marketing, then your ultimate objective is to drive eyeballs and leads. You need to learn the skills of being able to do that. You then need to break it down. Are you going to focus more on organic, paid? Are you going to integrate them together? If you're focusing on organic, are you focusing on organic website, social, which social platform, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, I think really identifying where your passion lies and then and it's so much easier these days, and it doesn't discredit anything from today, I will say that, but to get access to the information that you would need to become an SME. 10, 15, 20 years ago, I had to go and travel overseas on a plane to learn in person. There was no online courses. So I had to travel around the world to skill stack. These days, I can just travel to my chat GPT and skill stack.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, really identifying the product market fit, the passion, the problem that you want to solve, and then, skill stacking really. And skill stacking for me today is a very different process than it was a year ago. It's a very different process than it was 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's just being open to it, and this sounds cliche, but like growth mindset, like just having that. So
yeah. And I think it's easy to get complacent. I think a lot of people could even look at you and the success you've built and it's like, no way would he do that. Like he's just good now. So I think it's really refreshing for even myself to hear of like, no, it's a matter of the compounding effect of showing up every single day.
It's honestly, it's compound interest really. Like it's, I was speaking to someone before and she's, in the business development space and she's had a business for about 3 years. And she was saying her partner sometimes says to her, it's like he's very methodical, whereas she's a bit more like intuitive, go with the flow, is open to receiving it. And he's like, well, you're talking about abundance and being open to receive it, but then why haven't we hit all these numbers yet? And it's just like sometimes you've got to go through shit. Like, it took me 14 years, not 14 days, not 14 months, 14 years to hit 8 figures. So put that in perspective, 14 fucking years to hit 8 figures, right?
Yeah.
And that was through trial and error, same brand, different business models within that brand.
Yeah.
But I didn't stop, right? If I'd stopped at year 12, I never would have unlocked the growth that I have now where I can go and consolidate a market and go buy out my competitors.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like it was literally, I could see the top of the mountain, blah, blah, blah. I kept, I could see. I finally kind of got to there. But when I got there, I realized that I was still only at the bottom of the mountain.
Like new level, same devil in like a different
Yeah,
way.
yeah. And it doesn't mean that I'm not grateful and present being in that space, but it's just like, if you got a big mission, a big vision, it's like, well, am I happy to play at this level? Am I happy to stay on this level of the mountain? No problem if not. But, for me, like my default motor program should be, it's like constant expansion. So, I don't know any other way but to grow.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people can either settle or, like you said, like just give up way too soon. Like so many people say, I tried this for 3 months. It's like, that's nothing.
That'd be my, rule number one, right? Don't fucking give up. Just keep going, right?
And I think that's just what separates the people that make it versus the ones that don't, right? Like I don't actually think it's anything too special. It's doing the same thing over and over. If you're listening to this podcast having a realization that you genuinely need more structure and strategy in your business, this is your sign. The Strategic House Business Accelerator is where we take everything that I mention in this podcast and turn it into action. It is designed for women in business that are ready to scale to 30K months and beyond, but more importantly, sustainably. You get a customized business audit and implementation plan, direct access to me, expert guest speakers, multiple trainings per month, and it is a hands-on hybrid accelerator that's going to take you from where you are to exactly where you want to be. This is a community of women with all different backgrounds, industries, and models in their business. We have naturopaths, health and fitness coaches, interior designers, e-com founders, and even owners of marketing agencies inside of this accelerator. If this sounds like it could be something that you're interested in, you can check out the show notes below with more information on the Business Accelerator, or you're always welcome to slide into my DMs and we can have a conversation there. Let's get back to the show.
Yeah.
I would love to know within that, what are your daily non-negotiables as the founder of so many businesses, the dad of 7? What are your daily non-negotiables to show up as the best version and lead on that path of daily expansion?
Meditation / breath work is the number one non-negotiable. I haven't missed a day since I started doing it like extensively 6 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
6 years ago now. So it doesn't matter what time zone. If I've slept an hour, 2 hours, I refuse to miss a day, just because it's just so profoundly impacted my life across a multitude of ways that I never thought possible. And it's kind of like I speak about it in a framework that I've created called the abundance pyramid, right? And that first layer, like layer one, step one, is like my health or your health, right? And health is not just physical, it's mental, it's emotional, it's spiritual, right? Because there are different levels to it. Like, physical health and mental health are two different things, but then emotional health and mental health are two different things. Spiritual health and emotional health are different things. So it's like, how am I nourishing my soul on a day-to-day? How am I nourishing the love or the gratitude that I'm feeling? How am I nourishing my headspace so that I'm being less reactive to experiences? How am I nourishing my body so that the vessel can deal with all of the stress and rigors of life? So it's like, I think, learning and evolving and growing, it's just such a cornerstone pillar of what I'm about.
Yeah, I would love to know on that, hearing, challenges and things that can be thrown your way that can be unexpected on the daily basis. Mm-hmm. What would you say has been the most challenging thing that you've ever had to navigate in business? More importantly, what's the lesson that you extracted from that?
I'd say it's probably the biggest learning curve was the first time I lost like $1 million plus, and that was in 2015. And that was at the time I'd stretched myself too thin financially, but then also time-wise. So, and probably I'd taken my focus and put it into too many buckets without having leaders in those buckets to execute on the vision.
Yeah.
So the difference now with all the buckets is I have leaders in those buckets to execute on the vision, right? So I might have set the vision, the tone, the strategy, the concept, the problem that we're solving, but I'm not having to execute on a day-to-day. Mm-hmm. Back then, I tried to do both. And so during that time, I took my eyes off the prize. I was an SME at that standpoint still, like from my coaching days, but I hadn't evolved into a better leader. So I wasn't managing people, communicating with people properly. And I ended up losing like, just under $2 million during that time. And it was such a lesson to, all those things, stretching myself too thin. And my identity at the time was attached to my business. And so I took that as okay, I am a massive failure in life. So I got quite down on that, quite like, inward. And I actually carried that toxicity and that bitterness in me for many years, which actually ultimately led to me, having a nervous breakdown. So it's like, I think looking back now, I'm fucking grateful for it. At the time, it was a hard thing to go through. Compare it to like the last 6 months, I've lost $2 million on a business deal. So like, yeah, I've got wins, but I've also had another loss in the last 6 months. Same kind of financial loss. This time, like, cool, awesome. I'm grateful for that loss because it's just shown me two other things that I had to learn in this particular case, which is one, to, slow down a bit, right? Especially when entering new markets in M&A, which is where the mistake, or not the mistake, where the lesson came from me. And then to always remember to not impose what you believe to be your values onto someone else, because in that particular business deal, I assumed the values of the management team and the partners in that were the same as ours, as Australians, or mine more specifically, and they weren't. It doesn't make them bad people. It just means that we weren't aligned, which ultimately led to the business not succeeding and me losing $2 million.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. And it's just crazy to hear as well, where I think I'm even so guilty of this, where I almost think once I get to certain levels, I'm like, oh, mistakes won't happen. Like I've learned, but it's like, no, they truly do, happen, or lessons more so, like you said.
Not to sound like a therapist, if you can reframe them as lessons, it allows you to process it far differently.
Yeah.
And kind of look at it from like observe the situation rather than kind of be in it and emotionally be reacting to it.
And be a victim to it.
And
almost.
a victim to it, And that's the first time it happened, I was a victim and I carried that for literally half a decade.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like lesson to like, I have a saying now, and, rule number 2, failing to fail is failing.
Yeah.
Like, and you could add failing yourself. So failing to fail is failing yourself. If you fail to hit the point of failure, then you haven't stretched and expanded yourself enough to really test who you truly are and what you're capable of.
And that's another episode of Simply Business. I would love for you to rate this podcast, comment below. If you have any feedback, DM me on Instagram, and even better, share it with your friends, family, or share on Instagram. See you in the next episode.